Say something to let me know, okay? All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is Chopped. If you haven't seen the show, it's basically aligned to be a competition. So if you're a household of two, maybe it's going to be a lot of fun for you to take the ingredients and decide who's going to make what with certain ingredients, split it in half, take a look at it. What I've done before is given myself about 6 minutes, me, my partner, whoever that might be, whoever I'm going to compete with, I might take about 6 minutes to take an opportunity to look at all the ingredients and to kind of decide who's going to use what ingredients before you grab stuff. So I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that, and collectively you work out all 30 ingredients you have on your tray. So I did that competing with myself and taking a look at all the ingredients and breaking them down to some various dishes. After you see the demo this evening, Dustin's going to post the breakdown of what I did with those ingredients so that you can use those same principles and apply the same ingredients to the same dishes if you like, or you can go out and do your own thing, which I think is a lot more fun than trying to manage what somebody else did, because there's no recipe here. It's just cooking from your heart and being creative and imaginative when putting these dishes together. So I'm going to come over to this section of the kitchen and show you the various items and what I did to break them down. So you'll see that some items have been used twice. The salt and pepper I leave over where I'm going to be doing all my cooking. But I took the oils and broke it out into 3 places, and you'll see them show up on these trays respectively. So the first tray I'm going to point out to is what I created as a white chicken chili. So I have the beans, the chicken stock, the variety of peppers. What I have is a red, green, and yellow bell pepper in this container, and then I put a combination of jalapeno and poblano in that little center cup mixed with the peppers so that you would have the liberties of using those hot chilies at will. Garlic is exclusively used here in the chili, some chopped onion, a little bit of the oil. Then I have finishing items like cilantro to accent garnish, a little sour cream to accent garnish, scallions for flavor at the end. The chicken goes in toward the end because it's already cooked and roasted, delicious on its own. And then the chili spice, and you'll see me add those to the saucepan to make that chili as we move forward. The utensils I needed, basically just a little saucepan, a ladle, and a spoon to stir the soup. Really simple. The other dish I decided to make is a Pepperdill Pasta. So we had the pasta, and what I do with that pasta is I kind of take it out of the bag and kind of loosen it up because it's a fresh pasta, and sometimes those noodles will stick together. I keep it covered with a damp towel just because it is a fresh pasta, it'll dry out pretty quick. So with the pasta, I thought, well, for sure I'm going to need a little olive oil to be able to saute some tomatoes and warm up my olives. And I'm going to use the pesto after I warm those up with the tomatoes. And those are going to work out with the cream to make like a pesto cream sauce. Toss my noodles in there, finish it with some chopped parsley, Parmesan cheese, and that's going to be a stellar dish, I can assure you. The other dish I came up with, I had the tomato sauce, the shredded mozzarella cheese, the meatless meatball, Parmesan, a little parsley. I retracted some of the basil. You've got a one bag that's got basil and cilantro in it. I divided that up a couple different times and used it in a couple different places. So the Parmesan, chopped parsley, and then the dough ball that I have all secured here. Each of these I'm going to create a dish from. And lastly, I took the fish. The fish came to mind automatically with the tortillas because I figured that would make a wonderful taco. So the ingredients we've got are flour to dust the fish, little tomatoes and lettuce to be able to make that taco more exciting, some chili spice. So I saved some from the chili over for the fish so I have that kind of a Latin-inspired flavor. The significant amount of the oil is going to be used to saute the fish in. And I held back a little cilantro, and I used my whole lime here. You could use part of the lime to finish off the white chicken chili if you wanted to, but I thought I'd use half the lime in the skillet with the fish and then a couple of wedges on the plate for presentation so that maybe when I sit down to eat that fish taco, I can just squeeze that fresh, bright flavor of that lemon over the top of that. And as always, the salt and pepper is a key fundamental ingredient to lift the flavors and bring the taste of each of those individual ingredients to life as we consume them. So I'm going to start with the cooking process of these dishes. I'm going to start out this evening with the white chicken chili. And for that, I'm going to use this saucepan that you'll see here in the front kitchen. I'm going to apply a little heat to that. And again, a small measure of the oil that we had, I reserved. And I'll let that oil get hot enough to where it starts to shimmer. And if you've gone to many OUAB lives or you've won the lottery once or twice so far and I've done some cooking, I always talk about that shimmering. It's not smoking, but it's kind of got a little bit of movement in there, like dropping a penny in the pond. As soon as that appears, I'm going to drop in the onion. And if we put food product in the skillet and we don't hear the sound of sizzle, the sound of cooking, the oil in the skillet is just not hot enough to perform the task of extracting some of the natural fluids that are in the onion. So that's going to happen in that skillet. While that's going on, I'm going to start on the fish taco. So that I have about a 12-inch skillet. It looks like it's treated, but it's been beat up so bad you can hardly tell it's got a kind of a coating on it from DuPont. And the skillets that I'm going to start out with in spring next year don't have any of that coating on there because I don't know what they make it out of. I'm sure the FDA has approved it, but to me, anything that's not natural is kind of weird. So after that, you've got a good bit of garlic. You can decide what you want to do with that garlic. Maybe you want to use it in your taco. There's a lot here, so you may not need it all. I'm going to use about half of it to make this chili. And I put it in as those onions become translucent. Translucent meaning that they're kind of glassy, not quite transparent, but they're certainly a different color than what they were when we put them in there. Once you get that nice aromatic nose from the garlic, it's at that point we're going to put in the peppers. I love the heat. It's not as hot as you think. The poblano and the jalapeno mixed together along with the bell peppers. There's a red, yellow, and green bell pepper all going into the saucepan at that point in time. We're going to allow those to be able to do their job and to be able to soften up a little bit. And this is the interval that I like to put the spice in so that that spice has a chance to heat up. And by heating up the spice, it gives it a little bit more flavor. It extracts a little bit of the oils out of those spices and really makes for a dynamic chili. The reason why we call it a white chicken chili is because it's not a tomato sauce-based chili where we are all very often seeing where they're coming from whatever meat, be it chicken, turkey, or beef, whatever that chili might be. Once I've got those fairly well softened up, I'm going to go in behind it with the chicken stock. Now, if you prefer vegetarian type cuisine, simply use a vegetable stock or a water. It's just not going to have as much flavor, but if you're a vegetarian, you probably have a vegetable stock, either something that you've made on your own or something that you purchase at the market. The chili seasoning, the spices have a lot of spices, but they don't have salt and pepper. So I'm just going to freehand that salt and pepper in there. A little bit goes a long way. You can always test it and check it at the end to make sure that you have the right balance so that we're not over salting it. So that leaves me behind with the chicken, the scallions, some cilantro, and some garlic, which I'm just going to reserve off to the side. As soon as this mixture comes to a boil and you've got a nice simmer in there, I'm going to add the white cannellini beans, which are otherwise known as a white chili bean or a white kidney bean. They go by a lot of names, but they all deliver the same flavor. So I'm going to let that slow simmer while I move on to that fish taco. Trying to find a place for that guy to rest. In low heat's all you need to do. Everything's going to move along fairly easily at this point. So I'm going to give myself a little more real estate to work with. I'm saving that sour cream for the end so that I can use that as a little garnish on this dish. All right. So on to the fish taco. The fish taco, I'm going to start out with, take the fillets and I just simply split them in half. And splitting those fillets in half gives me the liberties of being able to take out that red line in between. So I'm going to lay a little bit of flour on on my tray and take some of those chili spices. You can taste it freehand to see if it's too powerful for you, but most folks will say that it gives a nice enhancement to the dish. While that skillet's hot, I'm going to put in that oil and allow it to come to a shimmer as we talked about for the soup. I'm going to season the fish with a little bit of salt and pepper. Again, there's no salt in that spice mix, so be generous based on how you indulge in spice and in salt and pepper. So once I get a shimmer on the skillet, I like to test it with a little bit of flour. If I see that flour start to sizzle and bubble up a little bit, then I know my skillet and the oil are hot enough to start the saute process for these pieces of fish. Put them in there one by one. I usually try to put the thinner fillet in there last, just because it's going to cook a little bit more quickly naturally because of the thickness of that. So we're going to let those cook. That leaves me behind with some lettuce, the balsamic vinaigrette dressing. You're going to leave me a half a lemon, tomatoes, some cilantro to garnish with at the end, and a couple of lime wedges to garnish with. This lime I'm going to use in the cooking process. So we'll come back to that shortly. So I'm going to clear my space so I have all the real estate that I need to do my job. And come back to you. I've got a couple of tacos here, 8-inch in diameter. At a point in time when those are close to being ready, I'm going to warm them up. You can either warm them up in a skillet or you can warm them up on a flat, hot surface. I have the luxury of having this flat top griddle here in the instructional kitchen, and I'm going to use that to warm up those tortillas when the time comes. I'm going to scooch over while this fish is cooking and the chili is at a slow simmer, and I'm going to start on the calzone and get that item cooked. I'm going to keep a close eye on that fish so it doesn't run away from me. So at this point, I am going to take the calzone and I'm going to take a little bit of the flour that I had left from the tilapia. I'm going to line my table, my desk, my bench, wherever I'm going to be doing my tilapia with, or my dough with, and lay that on the surface of the counter. So this has been treated with a little bit of a pan spray or a pan release, however you want to refer to it. So that should be easy to work with. The longer you leave it out at room temperature, the more the yeast activates and it starts to rise a little bit. So you want to hand stretch this. I didn't bother with the old rolling pin and all that rigmarole because it's just a lot of things to clean and have to touch later. But I would like you to consider stretching the dough out so you have a fairly decent diameter for that. Because I'm going to do a calzone, I'm going to have it more of an oval shaped, being conscientious of the edges so the edges are thin. If I have the edges thick, I'm going to have this very thick exterior crust, very much like a Chicago deep dish. And I want it to be somewhat approachable and not a big old belly stuffer dough. So I'm going to roll that out by hand, kind of press it out by hand and keep working it. Because of the gluten strands that are in that flour, because these types of soft, chewy doughs are always going to be better with a high gluten flour. You're going to have that elasticity in that dough, and that's what makes that stretch and want to come back. So I have that as my opportunity to do so. You've got enough red sauce there to be able to do another dish with, and enough mozzarella cheese to be able to make something else. So it's really up to you what you want to do. If you have a rolling pin, man, have at it, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to work with. The next step, I'm going to take some of the tomato sauce. I'm going to line it down the middle. And my hopes is not to get it too close to the edge so that it doesn't interrupt and interfere with the folding over the dough. Put a fair amount of mozzarella cheese, pretty much there in the middle, because I wanted to make this kind of a vegetarian, not really vegan, but vegetarian dish. We put in some soy protein meatballs with some textured vegetable protein involved so that they could be a dish enjoyed without a meat product for that purpose. I'm going to zoom over to the tilapia and give those guys a flip, because they're going to be nice and golden brown, and that's a good indicator that time to turn. And I'm going to reduce the heat and allow those to finish off under low heat, continuing to simmer as I come back and finish up the calzone. Now you've got a lot of basil on your tray in that kit, so I think saving a little bit of basil for garnish and putting a few basil leaves on the inside of this calzone is going to make for a pretty delightful flavor profile when the time frame comes. I try to keep basil covered up because it's very vulnerable, very tender. I'm going to put a little Parmesan in there, and now I'm going to work with the dough. Just fold it over the top, and again, stretch that stuff. Don't worry about stretching it too much. It's not like a pie dough. Stretch it out. Be comfortable and confident with the stretch of the dough so that you're meeting the edges. So you want that to have a seal on it just by pressing your fingertips into the dough and having that kind of a shieldy look to it. And that's really all there is to it on the calzone. Now, you don't have to go through that whole process. You can simply make a flatbread or a pizza with that. It's really up to you and how you want to do that. I just think calzones are fun because we always see pizza. We don't always see calzone. Now that I've got those pinched, I'm just going to crimp this dough. And what I do is I just kind of pull and stretch and press. So I'm pulling, stretching, and kind of pressing the edges of that dough as I gradually move around that shield shape, or it could be a half moon based on how you stretched out your dough, to kind of seal things together so when I put it in the oven, it's in good shape to be able to finish off. So I have some mozzarella left over, I've got some parm left, a little bit more meat, meatless meat, so plenty of stuff that I could do something else with. And you may have thought to yourself, well, why don't I just use that tomato sauce for the pasta? And there's really nothing wrong with that. Those are all great ideas, good ways to be able to use the product. I'm going to use that same tray that I had the pasta on to use as a means to bake the calzone. So simply lay that on there. If you have some pan spray at home, feel free to treat that paper so it doesn't stick too much. And I'm going to take some of that Parmesan, put it on top, so that bakes on, gives me that really nice artisan look to it, and that's going to be dynamic. Maybe a little bit of parsley, just because I love to see things in great shape. And I'm going to drop that in the oven. It's going to be about a 350, 400 degree oven at home. Based on if you have wind in that oven or not, will determine whether or not you will want to go to 350 or 400. On an oven that doesn't have wind on it, go to 400 degrees. With wind, probably 350 degrees. And you'll know when it's done because it's going to be a nice, beautiful golden brown all around. It's going to be about 18, 20 minutes or so. It's about the time frame that's going to take them to get that to cook. Now that I've got the tilapia finished, I'm going to take it and put it on a small tray to be able to get it out of the oil. And just put that skillet somewhere else so that I can have this space for the pasta dish that we're going to do. And with that pasta dish, I'm going to bring some water to a boil. All right, and that it's going to be a little bit salted. So if you have some salt at home in your pantry somewhere, feel free to make that pasta water taste like the sea, kind of really strong seawater-like flavor to it. I think you're going to recognize the benefit from doing so. So this come to a boil pretty quick, just because I had a hand in assisting me with that to be able to cut the chase on the demonstration. So I have the pasta. As I mentioned in the intro, I take that pasta and I just maybe drop it in a bowl, kind of break it up, loosen it up, make sure that the strands aren't stuck together, and that way you've got a chance of being able to have that pasta cook. Unlike dry pasta, this is going to cook in less than 2 minutes. So that gives me a chance to line up all my other ingredients that I'm going to use. I have the sweet basil pesto that we prepared in advance because it's a laborious task, And if you've won a lottery in the past, maybe you have touched making pesto at one of the Mediterranean themes that we had earlier this year. Maybe not. If you haven't, pesto is fun to make. Much better than the ones you buy in the grocery store. Just like dry pasta, once it goes in that boiling seawater, I like to move it around. Make sure that it doesn't stick together, because that's nothing but a nightmare, and nobody likes that. Some of the utensils I have is a little spatula, the tongs. I have a little strainer so that I can drain the water off of that pasta as soon as it's cooked. And as I had mentioned, it doesn't take very long, about a minute, minute and a half to cook that pasta. Not long at all. That's going to get it to the al dente stage, what we call is to the bite. So it has a little bit of a chew on it. But this fresh pasta, it is bar none better than a dry pasta. And I think you might recognize that. So I'm just going to scooch over here and drain the water off, just like you would do that at home. And I'm going to hold the water, hold the saucepan with a little bit of the water in the bottom of it, and put my pasta in a bowl off to the side. Now in that same saucepan that you boiled your pasta in, we're going to bring that up to some heat. Allow the heat to penetrate on that. If you've got a little water, dump it. Let that get hot, and we're going to pour in a little, not a lot, maybe about a tablespoon of olive oil. That's all we need. I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil that I have left behind and put that on the pasta and move it around a little bit so that it doesn't get stuck together. Sometimes dry pasta is higher in starch than these do, because this is all 100% durum semolina. A lot of the pasta we have at home has some AP flour, all-purpose flour in it, and that can change the dynamics on how that starch works out. So the oil's hot. I'm going to put in some tomatoes, a little bit of tomato. I took the tomatoes that I had in the measure and divided them by two. Half's for the taco, half is for the pasta dish. And right after those tomatoes start to sweat, I don't want to dissolve them and have them come into a sauce or a puree. I want to just get them hot enough to where they warm up, and I'm going to pour in the heavy cream. So you're making kind of a cream sauce with this mixture, and at that point, I'm going to allow that cream to come to a simmer, and I'm going to put in the pesto. This is delightful combination of all sweet basil, walnuts, Parmesan cheese, olive oil, little salt and pepper, and that's it. Try not to bring it to a boil after you add the pesto. Why? Is because it's going to change that sweet, delicate flavor of the fresh basil, and it's going to change the color of that sweet basil to an off color. So all I've done is warmed it up with the tomatoes. I'm going to add the olives. If you love olives, you're going to love these. These are a wonderful Mediterranean olive, a fantastic flavor. I don't know how you can go wrong with something like that. That, to me, is wonderful. I can't explain that anymore. So I'm going to leave behind some sweet basil to garnish, some Parmesan to garnish with, and my tongs to be able to toss the dish. So let us work on fish taco, because that's the only one that's going to take us a couple of minutes to complete. And as I had mentioned, warming up the taco is not terribly necessary. It just helps a lot in the elasticity of that taco shell. If you've ever gone through the line at Chipotle, you may have recognized that dynamic $10,000 press that they use to be able to push that tortilla down, and the dough that they use, the flours that they use, are very high gluten. So the glutinous gives it that chance to stretch, so you can have guys like Paul Bunyan go through that line and put double this, double that, triple this, and they're still able to take that tortilla and roll it and have some finished burrito-looking product at the end. It's pretty impressive. So just enough warmth to be able to do that. If you have a microwave, warm them up in there, but not long. Based on the power level, maybe 10, 15 seconds. Doesn't take long at all. I'm going to revert back to the bag of lettuce that you've got. This is a nice locally grown artisan mix of greens. They're not your standard romaine and Berg lettuce. These are really nice, good for you greens with some dynamic flavors. They're fairly well trimmed, previously washed. Gave you a little balsamic dressing just for kicks. You could use whatever dressing you want. and just drizzle a little bit on there. You got enough for a lot of other things, so don't use it all because I think it's going to wilt your lettuce down a little bit. We got a little bit of salt and pepper on the fish, but not a lot. So I'm going to add a little bit more to be able to bring these lettuce greens to life, so that they're going to be a little bit more flavorful. At this point, I'm going to put in a little bit of lime juice so it has a little bit more character, and I'm going to put a little bit of lime juice on the fillets of tilapia that we had just to brighten those up. And I've left them on this flat top griddle because that was what I consider a warm place. And it's always been a good spot for me to be able to use to keep things warm. So with those tortillas, now they're soft enough that I can start to take action and put that nice lettuce in there. That might be dinner for me tonight. If I was at home, I would have the fish taco and a bowl of chili and call it a day. I think that would be a real treat. Putting in a little bit of tomatoes that we had reserved, one of the pieces of fish, and just wrapping that up. Now here you could use your sour cream if you wanted to. You could use some chopped cilantro that you might have. I have saved a little bit of cilantro, and I don't have a problem eating it right off the stem like that because I'm an herbaceous lover. I like the flavor of fresh herbs, and you really can't beat it when it comes to that. You've got a couple of cocktail picks that came with your kit, and those I'm just going to use to be able to zip through there, to be able to warm them up, to be able to help hold it together. And there's enough lettuce there to be able to make this little taco. Or you could have made a decision, maybe you did, to use these tortillas as a fajita, because you've got all the ingredients to be able to do a fajita too. It all seems to be able to work out pretty well. But I think this was a cool idea just because I like that kind of flavor. Kind of reminds me of a food truck that I can't go to anymore because they're just not out, at least not in my area. So you don't get that luxury. So use the pick to be able to help secure things together. And at this point, I'm going to start to do some presentations on the stuff that we've got this evening. So we made 4 dishes. We're going to hone in on those. I'm going to start with the fish taco. And we're just going to simply plate those the way that we made them, just plain and simple. As always, I like a lot of fresh herbs, so I'm going to use those as a little bit of garnish on here. With the other half of the lime, I just simply split it in half and use that as a little bit of a focal point for you to be able to present that fish taco using the tilapia as your main ingredient there. I want to move on with the Pepperdill Pasta. I turned the heat off of this cream sauce, as you know, so it's not done anything but just sit there and rest. So at this point, I'm going to take the pasta and just add it to the pan. So I've got really only one skillet or one saucepan there to work with to try and keep it simple. And because I've oiled it, it doesn't stick together too much. So you'll notice that you can enrobe these Pepperdill pasta, these wide egg noodles with this pesto cream sauce with just enough tomato to give it a hint of color, some bright freshness. Really quite nice. I love it. This is one of my favorites. I probably was thinking about some of my favorite foods when I put the 30 item ingredients together, which is why we're probably ending up with some of my most treasured flavors. So the Pepperdill pasta, it's really enough for 2 people. Especially if you grew up out in the great Northwest, on the West Coast. They don't eat like that, like we do here in Columbus with really big portions. So that be wonderful for 2, or a very hungry situation where that would come into play. So I saved a little bit of basil. I like the accent garnish. I'm going to put a little bit of sweet basil on the top of that. I've got a little shredded Parmesan left over. Oh my God, I love this dish. And a little bit of chopped parsley I'm going to use to accent that. So that's our Pepperdill pasta dish. Another lovely treat. I'm going to work on the last of the chili. Now it's not as thick and crazy as the chili you might be used to having. You could have it thicker just by taking some of the beans out of there and just mashing them or you could use a food processor or a blender to be able to smooth them out. But to me, I think it has enough viscosity to be able to have a nice nappe on the back of the ladle. So while it's still hot, you're going to add that pre-cooked chicken into it just to warm it up. The scallions so that they are bright in flavor. Then we're going to check to make sure that we have a good flavor. A little salt and pepper to open up with and see how that reacts with the dish. Give it a little taste to make sure it's going to be good with my taco. Really good. I would add more salt, but my cardiologist would probably give me a beating, so I'm going to let it be. I'm going to ladle that up, and you can see all those very nice bright colors of that white chicken chili. It's got a pink cast from the chili powder. It's certainly different than a lot of the chilies that we might see. I like cilantro to finish that off with, so if you save a little bit of herbs just for garnishes, I think you're going to like the way that's going to look. And maybe just a little bit of salt. If nobody tells him, I think we're going to be okay. So that's the white chicken chili. Some little crackers or some flatbreads, something fun to eat with that would be wonderful. Last dish we've got coming out of the oven, which should be ready now, is our calzone. 18 minutes-ish goes by, it cooks, gets a nice golden brown color, and that little accent garnish of parsley goes on, and we just simply serve that as is. If you wanted to cut that into pieces, like 3 or 4 pieces, and enjoy that as a family, you could certainly do that. There's nothing, it's kind of, as you let it rest a bit, you're going to recognize that it has a nice chance of setting up and not becoming too wet on the inside. It'll rest up just like a cooled down pizza. So there's the mystery basket, or the chopped basket from today. We've got a white chicken chili, the tilapia fish taco, we've got the calzone, Pepperdill pasta with sweet basil pesto, tomatoes, a really nice combination of items using all 30 ingredients. I didn't use my sour cream, so I could put my sour cream on there. I could put it in my taco, but I'm going to put it in here with the chili. Just because if I've got a lot of chili spice, sometimes dairies like that will give that a little chance of cooling down a little bit. So that is where I'm going to use the sour cream. So now I've used all my ingredients. You've got a little tomato sauce left over, which to me, why not? Drizzle a little bit on that calzone. So now you've got this real dynamic flavor that you can kind of like that. One of those pizza places sell you just dough with some sauce on the side to dip into it. Sounds crazy, but people buy it. And that way you've got a little bit of something to eat with the dough on the outside. So that's chopped for tonight. Hopefully you enjoy yourselves and have some fun with creativity. And I strongly encourage you to come up with dishes that you have created and put them on the OUAB website so you can be proud and show off the work that you did, because this is the first time we've done a chopped competition like that, and I think that everybody who signs up for the lottery would love to see your creations. So hopefully we'll see you another time, either this semester or in the spring. All right? Have a good holiday tomorrow, and enjoy.